Hey guys, Sean here and welcome to the F1 Word. Now there are many disagreements among fans when it comes to Formula One, who is the best driver of all time, how many races should be on the calendar, and are sprints actually any good? But one of the bigger debates at the moment is around the 2024 title fight and whether or not we actually have one, with seemingly half the fan base saying we do and the other half adamant we absolutely do not. So in this video we'll take a look at the standings, do some maths, terrifying thoughts, and see if Max Verstappen's title really is under threat. Let's start by having a look at the standings and just how big the task is for Lando Norris if he's going to overhaul Max Verstappen's championship lead. So, Verstappen sits at the top of the Drivers' Championship with a fairly healthy lead of 52 points over Norris. He is also 86 points clear of Charles Leclerc in third place and 94 ahead of Oscar Piastri. Mathematically speaking, Carlos Sainz, who is 141 points adrift, Lewis Hamilton 157 points away, and George Russell, who sits 176 points off the lead, could do it, but let's be honest here, they're not going to do it, unless, of course, the top four all decide to go on holiday to Ibiza or something for the next 6 races. And although they are absolutely much closer than the others, realistically it's unlikely Leclerc or Piastri will do it either, so we are looking at best at a Verstappen versus Norris battle, but even that could be a long shot. So time to do some maths then. Let's see if I've got this right. I mean, I couldn't have proofread it any more times if I'd tried, but anyway, there are 6 races left this season, which means including the point for the fastest lap, there are a maximum of 156 points available from the remaining Grand Prix of 2024. However, there are also 3 sprint races to take into account, so with 8 points for the winner of each of those, that adds another 24 points into the mix, giving us a grand total of a maximum 180 points left on the table. When you put it like that, a 52-point lead doesn't sound all that comfortable, does it? But that all changes when you look at the results, if you like, needed. If, and it is a big if, Lando Norris wins every race including sprints between now and the end of the year and takes a point for fastest lap 2, his final total for the season would be 459 points. But if Verstappen finishes just second at all remaining races, again including sprints, his final tally would be 460 points, leaving Norris a single point away from tying with the Dutchman and winning on countback, because if he won the next 6, his total number of wins for the season would be 9 to Verstappen's 7. Hence, I suppose, the frustration from Zach Brown over Daniel Ricciardo's fastest lap in Singapore, which took that point away from the Brit. That could prove crucial. The overall point being that even if Norris wins every race, sets every fastest lap and wins the sprints, Verstappen could finish P2 at each of the remaining races and still be champion. Suddenly, that looks like a big challenge for Norris and highlights why so many think he's got no chance. Which, and I'm sorry, I hate to be that guy, is factually incorrect. He has got a chance, the numbers show that, but it's not going to be easy. And look, we can do the maths all we like and make out that all this looks doable on paper, but titles are not won on paper. The idea of Norris winning every race between now and the end of the season is probably not all that realistic. Sure, I get it, Verstappen won all but 3 races in 2023, but that was in a dominant Red Bull. And although McLaren do have the fastest car at the moment, the field is much closer at the front than it was last season, obviously. We've seen, haven't we, in recent weeks that when they put it all together, Ferrari are a threat for poles and wins and so could easily take points away from both title contenders before the checker flag falls in Abu Dhabi in December. Equally, although also having a bit of an up and down season, Mercedes have shown that they can be in the mix as well at some race weekends, and so they may take some points away from both of them too. And hey, what about Oscar Piastri? Okay, we've heard a lot about the team orders or papaya rules or whatever they want to call them, and it is very likely that if Piastri is leading in, let's say, Brazil, for example, and Norris is second, then the team will be asking for Oscar to give that position to Lando if the title fight is still on. But what if Piastri is leading, Verstappen is second, and Norris is third? Not really an awful lot McLaren can do in that situation. The point is that saying all he has to do is win every race is much easier said than done at the best of times, but with how close things are this year, the prospect of that actually happening is slim, as is, it must be said, the idea of Verstappen finishing every race and sprinting P2. The same absolutely applies to him when it comes to Ferrari, Mercedes and Piastri taking points away. What Max could really do with, though, is his teammate closer to the very front of the grid so he can help by taking points from Norris and co, and of course supporting Verstappen in his bid to win his 4th World Championship in a row. Another way of looking at all of this is that Norris needs to outscore Verstappen by 8.7 points on average across the remaining race weekends. Technically 8.66 recurring, but anyway. If he falls short of that and let's say only manages to outscore him by an average of 8 points at 5 weekends, he will need at least 12 at one other race depending on who has the most wins come the end of the season. Ideally for him, 13 points. So you can see how failing to win just one race or hit that 8.7 point target can change things quite drastically. It is also important to note that a McLaren 1-2 at any of the last few races, Norris of course ahead of Piastri, would open things up a bit more for him and make his chances of title victory more likely. Here's the thing though, do we really believe Verstappen is not going to win another race this year? Some of you are probably screaming yes, but the car is in a bad place, no doubt about it. But as he showed at Singapore, a track everyone expected Red Bull to struggle at, yet finish second, he can pull a performance and a result out of the bag when needed. Alright, he was a long way off the lead, but it was still second, 18 points and a loss of 7 points to Norris at a weekend where things were expected to be much worse. He won't like it, but he can, in theory, finish all the remaining races a lap down on Norris so long as he takes P2. That is all he needs to do to win title number 4. When we go to a track where the car is expected to be strong, therefore, he's surely going to be in the fight for victory, and that could scupper Norris's title charge massively. As, of course, could any potential mistakes Lando makes. Again, look at Singapore. He was well up the road and under no threat from anyone behind, yet there were a few moments where he looked ragged and even hit the wall. Yeah, he ultimately got away with it, but with the margins in F1 so tiny, next time he may not be so lucky, and that would have huge title implications. Okay, yeah, I accept. That is a lot of words to essentially say Norris has a shot, but he needs to be outscoring Verstappen heavily every weekend, needs help from his other rivals and teammate, needs Max not to win any races, and for the Red Bull driver to have at least one poor weekend if he's going to pull it off. It is also worth a quick look at the Constructors' Championship battle too, because although some may think nobody cares, the teams absolutely do, and it is an important title to win, financially at least. The title fight here is, well, probably less realistic than a battle for the drivers. Not only do McLaren have a good lead, they also have two drivers who are consistently delivering top-end points finishes, and so they are the overwhelming favourites as things stand. It's tough to bet against them, really. The actual scrap here is probably between Red Bull and Ferrari for P2. And much like McLaren, the Scuderia seem to have two drivers more capable of picking up the big points than Red Bull do. Verstappen will score heavily most weekends, but Sergio Perez has been, for the most part, really letting the side down. With only 34 points between them, you'd have to say that Ferrari have a great shot at finishing as runners-up this year. But hang on a minute, Sean. McLaren are only 41 points clear of Red Bull, and you're saying that's likely game over, I hear you cry, probably. Well, that's simply because of the point already made. Since the summer break, Norris and Piastri have collectively averaged 37.5 points per race. Verstappen and Perez have averaged just 16.75 and the Ferrari duo 24. That is why it is currently Red Bull versus Ferrari rather than McLaren versus Red Bull on the team side of things. Prediction, McLaren take the Constructors' title, Red Bull just cling on to P2 and Ferrari end up P3. So anyway, in conclusion, do we really have a title fight on our hands, and is Max Verstappen's title really under threat? Well, again, on paper the math says we do, but in practice it appears much more difficult. Lando Norris is going to have to be near perfect at every race between now and the end of the season, and may still need Max Verstappen to struggle at a race or two if things are going to open up a little bit more for him. But the idea of going perfect in a car that isn't as dominant as the RB19 we saw last year is not all that likely and is a massive ask. It is understandable that people want to see a scrap right down to the finale in Abu Dhabi. Many fans are desperate to see Red Bull's run come to an end, just as they were with Ferrari in the noughties and Mercedes more recently. Even if the run for Red Bull has only been for 3 seasons, 2 constructors' titles and 3 drivers' titles, the domination we saw last year is still raw for a lot of people. With, of course, the probable exception of Max Verstappen and Red Bull fans, who will have been very, very happy with the 2023 performance. Look, we're not quite at the stage of clutching at straws from fans just yet. That will change if Max Verstappen wins, for example, let's say 2 of the next 3 races, or Lando fails to score at 1. But it does, as mentioned a couple of times already, still feel like a long shot. My personal view is that with the battle at the front so close and with the fastest car badge, if you like, at any given weekend ebbing and flowing just enough to keep things somewhat unpredictable and offer up the potential to throw a spanner in the works for either driver, I think Max will just about hang on. It will be closer than some predict though. That said, and as I've again gone over already, one bad weekend for either driver could swing things massively. A DNF for Verstappen with Norris winning would throw the door wide open, but a DNF for Norris with a Verstappen victory pretty much ends the debate and the battle. We've got a tense and fascinating final 6 race weekends ahead for the title contenders, the teams, and indeed for fans of each driver, and yes, of course, for the neutral too. Bring it on. I think this is going to be a great end to the season, whatever happens. So can Norris win the title? Yes, mathematically he absolutely can, but will he do it? Well, you can let us know what you think in the comment section down below, and to catch up on all the latest Formula One news and reaction, then head on over to planetf1.com. Now, I will be back soon with some more content, but in the meantime, if you did enjoy this one, then please do leave a like, as it really does help the channel in its never-ending battle with the YouTube algorithm, and consider subscribing as well so you don't miss any future videos or streams. But as ever, thank you for watching. I've been Sean, this has been the F1 Word, and until next time, goodbye.